you see me. Thank you.
Welcome back to MyLifeWalk.com. This is Brian Jones, here with his new look, clean. The hair was working my nerves. I like the hair. But the maintenance of it was working me, so I had to cut it all off. Uh, I do count it a joy to be with you once again, to share with you what God has shared with me. And I'm always thankful and grateful for what God has blessed me with, what He has brought me through, and even the things that I face today, because I truly believe in His word that it is my responsibility to count it all joy, the good and the bad, when they come my way. So I'm very thankful and I'm very grateful for uh, my life's experiences. All right, we're going to get right into it. Speaking of life and experiences and emotions, we're going to talk about anger today. Uh, and the title that I've come up with is Everyone Can Get Angry, but you, as a believer, cannot sin. Now, as we look at it, some of us, have this mindset, not just about anger, but about many things, that the world can do all these things, and the world can react in the way they react, but I can't. Well, I don't necessarily fall into the can't. I think that falls under kind of the old mindset, is that we adhere to the rules or else. Uh, I believe we should not. We should not, because I'm coming from Ephesians 4:26, which really talks about what it says: "Be ye angry and sin not. Let not the sun go down on your wrath." Uh, that's pretty much where I'm coming from today. Is that we all, as human beings, have the emotion of anger. And there are consequences, whether you're in the world or you're walking this spiritual life. There are consequences for the expression that extends into a sinful nature for all of us. So if I'm in the world and I get angry and I strike someone, well, there's consequences to that. you know and the same consequence would be there for me as a spiritual person. If I allow my anger, the expression of my anger, to 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 take me to that extent, well, there's consequences to that. So for those of us who are walking in the spiritual walk, and those of us who are uh, those who are not, there's consequences for extreme expressions of anger. But for us as believers, there are additional collateral spiritual damages that happen, um, that began to rip at the fiber of our spiritual walk. You know, so we have to understand that we are not the world. We are in the world, but we are not of the world. So it is imperative that we understand, even though it might seem like a normal reaction, someone trying to harm your children, or someone taking something that belongs to you, or someone cheating you out of something. Uh, the natural worldly reaction is to be angry about that, and to a certain extent, we want to retaliate. We have that in the world, there's that tit for tat. Well, for believers, those type of worldly um, guidelines, well, we can't follow that. And it might seem unfair that the world can do what it does, uh, and we can't. Well, when you sign up, when you make the decision to live this life, you basically go into an agreement, a contract with God that I'm going to live according to your standards and according to your principles, not my own, and definitely not the world's. So it may seem unfair, you know, to in the sense that, you know, yeah, somebody slap me, I'm gonna slap them back. That just seems fair naturally, but from the spiritual perspective, that's not the agreement we made. And I'll use this example. You know, it's like a military personnel saying it's not fair that those who are not in the military get to wear their regular clothes. You know, well, you signed up for the military. Uniform is required. You know, we can't be envious of others who can do what they can do when we signed up for something different and we know what the expectation is. So we have to really understand that it's not about what the world does, you know, and what the world may be allowed to get away with, because truly no one gets away with anything. You know, that's the reality. We might think it may appear that way, uh, but we're basing that off of, you know, truly the choice that we made. You know, when you decided that I'm going to live for Christ, you have to sacrifice your reaction, the natural reaction that you would like to have and like to express. You know, I mean, we have to be honest with each other. When we signed up, when we said, Lord, I'm going to live for you, that expression of anger to cuss somebody out, you gave that up. You told God, well, I'm not going to live the way the world lives. You know, and sometimes we do tend to rationalize, you know, and we minimalize, you know. And do I believe it's going to send you to hell? No, I'm not saying that. But it does, as I said, have a spiritual collateral, has spiritual collateral damage. You know, we can't take this stuff lightly because God is telling us, you know, what the consequences are. He describes to us how anger affects us. And he also describes how not expressing anger to a sinful level, how that has a consequence. Uh, let's see, I lost my point here. I lost my space here. So he basically tells us in Ephesians 31. This is the King James version. Let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and evil speaking be put away from you with all malice. So I guess we have to understand, well, why does God tell us this? You know, he knows we have the emotions. You know, and I want you to consider, truly, why does he tell you that? Why does he express to those who believe in him and those who follow him why we should not do that? You know, well, I tend to think he knows what's best for us. I tend to believe that he is sharing this information with us for our spiritual benefit, for the benefit of those who are around us, that they might see a difference in us Because truly that's what this walk is about. It's not being like the world. And we have a tendency to want to do what the world does, but yet set ourselves apart. And that's a dangerous line to walk. It's a dangerous balancing act to partake in and try to maintain both your spiritual well-being and yet walk as the world walks. And this is my personal belief, is that we roll the dice with that, because the line can become grayed very easily, you know. So we have to, one of the things that I've heard all the time, and not just about anger, but it's like people feel it's not fair. Well, fairness, that's one of those relative things that we just, you know, I guess you have to ask yourself, well, then should it be? If we choose to be in the world but not of the world, well, why then should it be fair? I don't really understand that concept. But we got to step away from that and our logic and trying to put these type of emotional reactions, expressions into, like I said, these rationalizations that help us justify what we do. And basically, that's what it's about. We tend to justify. We find ways to justify the very things that we do, even though we know it doesn't line up with what God says. And so it's a very dangerous thing, because it can affect our rewards. And another example I'll give you, there is in the legal arena, there is something called a non-disclosure agreement. And basically, this agreement states that if party one decides they want to settle the matter, and it presents this agreement to party two. Now, if party two accepts the agreement, they have to abide by the terms of the agreement. Meaning, well, they can't talk about this to others. They can't tell them if there's a monetary settlement. They can't tell them the amount. I mean, this is a part of that non-disclosure agreement, that you just can't talk about this. It doesn't matter if party two agrees. It doesn't matter whether they change their mind or not. The agreement is signed, and they have to abide by that, or there will be consequences with the court system. So they would have to, it could extend from repaying the money. It could be jail time. There could be whatever. I don't know for certain what all the consequences are, but there are consequences for breaking that agreement. And the same applies to us as believers. We made an agreement with God that we would live according to His word and do our very best to abide by His word. But when we break that agreement, especially based on what the world does, there are consequences to that. Whether they be good or bad. If we do the right thing, there are consequences. If we do the wrong thing, according to His word, there are consequences. And it has nothing to do with the world, because the word is not given to the world. It's given to us as believers to live by and abide by. So we have to know that we're not the world. So what the world does and what the world gets away with has nothing to do with us. But you got to understand that even asking or pointing out the unfairness of it is in itself a selfish perspective, because you basically want to do what you want to do. Let's just be real. We tend to want to do what we want to do, so we will rationalize and we will justify and we will even compare the situation to what the world does. Yeah, but you're not of the world. And that's the thing that we have to remember, because it is a slippery slope when we start playing that game. You know, and I'm seeing it personally, in my opinion, I'm seeing it more and more with not just music, just behavior in general. What was deemed unacceptable, you know, in years past, has become more acceptable. I mean, to be honest with you, it is kind of a difficult thing to see the distinction between the world and believers today. Um, and like I said, I just believe that there are certain things that, like I said before, it's not about what we can't do. I think it's more about what we shouldn't do, and how, if we do them, how it affects our spiritual life. I mean, because truly we have a choice. God gives us that choice. And if you choose to do what the world does that necessarily make you a sinner? Well, no. Does it send you to hell? Well, no. I can't say that one way or the other. But it has an effect. It truly has an effect on possibly your reward. How God administers that. I'm not speaking for God, but it's just my personal opinion, is that we tend to gray the line. I guess that's my point. And I think we have to be careful about graying that line, because ultimately we want to be good representatives of God. So how are we different from the world if we do and react and behave the same way the world does? So my encouragement to you today is to hold your peace. Don't worry about, well, this is what anybody would do. Well, it might be, but is this what God wants you to do? Is this the reaction that God would have you display? Because, like I said, when we do these things, we create spiritual consequences, that hinders our growth. So be the peacemaker. Hold your peace. Let God fight your battles. This is what we proclaim all the time. So we have to be reminded to allow Him to fight your battle, and don't allow your anger to carry you over into sin. I'll leave you with this last verse, and it's Proverbs 15 and 18. A hot-tempered person stirs up conflict, but the one who is patient calms a quarrel. So think about these things when the next time you're beginning to feel angry, and hopefully that will not allow your expression of anger to cross over the line into a sinful expression. As always, I love you, and God loves you. And until next time.